Give everyone a sense of what the country is going to look like next Mother's Day.
Well, George, I hope that next Mother's Day we're going to see a dramatic difference than what we're seeing right now. I believe that we will be about as close to back to normal as we can. And there's some conditions to that, George. We've got to make sure that we get the overwhelming proportion of the population vaccinated. When that happens, the virus doesn't really have any place to go. There aren't a lot of vulnerable people around. And where there are not a lot of vulnerable people around, you're not going to see a surge. You're not going to see the kinds of numbers we see now.
Next Mother's Day? I mean, what is Dr. Fauci smoking? Because I might have to try some of it. We might be at normal next Mother's Day? I told you all along that this was going to be the way this goes. That just when you think you're starting to get freedom back, just when you think your life is going to be in your hands once again, and you don't have to constantly live under the thumb of the most neurotic and anxious among us, right? You'd have Fauci come back out and tell you, maybe, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but over the course of the next 600 to 600 months, we could see a diminution of viral load passage based on the parabolic data that I'm seeing here of, basically maybe at some point you'll not have to do all this crazy nonsense. Very far in the future, though, if almost everybody gets vaccinated. And I reserve the right to move the goalposts on that, too. You just have to say to yourself, when is this too much? When do people finally realize, oh, it is happening? And now it's very clear to me, having spent some time in Tennessee over the weekend, just to have a weekend out of New York City, took the Snow Princess. We just had a nice time. And I'm heading down to Florida in a few weeks. Same thing. I just want to get out and be in states where they're embracing freedom, because you have this real disparity now. I mean, it's all around you. New York is still living in fear. And I know that they'll say, oh, but, the capacity is going back up in a couple of weeks. Not really. They're going to have the 6-foot rule. I mean, they're leaving all these little bureaucratic, nonsensical, arbitrary things in place. And for those of you who live, and God bless, because you're lucky, those of you who live in Texas, those of you who live in Florida, those of you who live in states with governors that are not insane, are already saying, Buck, what are you even talking about? Why are you even talking about this, Buck? What's the big problem? Well, because you got half the country basically being dragged through the Fauciite absurdity, and the other half now is not. I'm like, don't leave us behind, guys. Don't let us get left on the battlefield here. But I know it's the people who live in the blue states. We're suffering the consequences of that. We're suffering the consequences of putting so much power in the hands of bureaucrats and idiots. And this is why Fauci's saying next Mother's Day. I mean, that would be next May, folks. And he didn't even say we'll be normal. He said we'll be pretty close to in the approximate universe of something in the general vicinity of a number that we could call normal, maybe, No, 100% normal. There is no basis upon which to say that we will be anything other than unmasked, together, at sporting events and concerts and bars, breathing on each other, spilling beer on each other by accident or on purpose. Depends on who somebody's rooting for. There is no basis for that. But then there's the Fauci. And then there's the Biden administration. And they're not done using all this stuff. They haven't gotten everything they want. They have reordered the circuitry of society's brain here. We all just obey like a bunch of little hamsters that want to get a pellet or want to, get the little water feeder thing they have in hamster cages. We just do what we're told, no matter how stupid it is. I was on planes over the weekend, obviously, if we're going to fly out of state, multiple times. And I'm just sitting here like, They're talking to us all like we're toddlers. This is so dumb. They've really now taken it to heart. I've flown a few times in recent weeks where it's, okay, we know you're going to unmask to drink or eat, but, don't take too long. What? I just want to tell them to shut the you-know-what up. Don't take too long. A reasonable amount of time to eat or drink. The moment that, you break the seal with your mask, you're breathing that virus out into the air. I mean, this whole thing is so dumb. And I understand it for those of you that live in those more sane states. I need you to understand the federal government's not giving this up. And so even if you're not dealing with this day to day, we're going to have this hangover of Fauciite tyranny for years. And so every time you fly, every time you go into a federal building, every time you go into a big box store that's a national chain because of legal concerns, people keep saying, oh, well, do what small businesses want. Well, the federal government sets the liability policies, for example, when it comes to a federal chain and what you can be sued for. I mean, they could have made it so we have far less COVID. Get ready for all the COVID lawsuits that they're already happening, but you're going to see a lot more of that. The big box stores, the federal government property, anything that involves crossing state lines, anything that involves flying, they're not letting this stuff go. And then there was the real pièce de la résistance of Fauciite lunacy. The pièce de la résistance, the Fauci would say, of, well, maybe just get ready for like some masks forever. That's right. This is going to be a thing. And you may say, Buck, it's not my problem. I'm not going to wear one. Unless we take this head on, there are going to be people who feel self-righteous telling you, excuse me, could you mask up because it's flu season? Yeah. Play two.
But is the mask going to be something we have with us in a seasonal aspect?
That's quite possible. I think people have gotten used to the fact that wearing masks, clearly, if you look at the data, diminishes respiratory diseases. We've had practically a non-existent flu season this year merely because people were doing the kinds of public health things that were directed predominantly against COVID-19. The Australians during their winter, same thing. They had almost no flu, largely due to the kinds of things, including mask wearing. So it is conceivable that as we go on a year or two or more from now, that during certain seasonal periods, when you have respiratory-borne viruses like the flu, people might actually elect to wear masks to diminish the likelihood that you'll spread these respiratory-borne diseases.
Oh, there's so much here. There's so much. First of all, if we had a real press corps, which we do not, if we had actual journalists, which we do not, they would ask the question, well, why? You're saying we had basically zero flu. Flu is a virus. Why did we have zero flu, but the worst COVID numbers we've ever had simultaneously? And then people say, oh, because it's more contagious. Okay, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of times more contagious than the flu. That's interesting. Because you had enormous surge in COVID and very little in the flu. And the answers they're giving you for this are obviously insufficient. They're obviously not telling you the truth, or they don't know the answer. But there's so much here. Mask up for, why didn't we, people like me at the beginning of this a year ago were saying, and you know this, why did we never mask up for the flu? People die from flu every year. And they were saying, well, let's shut up. You're a flu, bro. This is different. We're not saying do it forever, just for 2 weeks, just for 2 weeks. Now it's, actually mask up forever, at least during the flu season. And you might say, well, Buck, that's only going to be, oh, no, they're going to try to, you've got a Democrat administration and a Democrat-controlled federal government. So guess what? They're going to try to find ways to make this policy in as many places as they can. The mask is the Biden-Harris MAGA hat of this administration, right? That is absolutely what has happened here. This has become a political symbol for people. It is no longer for millions and millions of Americans about, especially as they're vaccinated or they've already had it, about protecting them. It is about, look at what team I'm on. The mask is now a symbol for millions of political tribalism.
Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.